Hello and welcome to Lodestar Solutions webinar on why software development projects fail and how to increase your project success rate with an agile approach. I want to quickly go over a disclaimer. What we are presenting today is based on Lodestar's opinion and experience. Everyone's experience about how they work with this approach is different, and how they apply these methods may be a little bit different. The whole purpose of this webinar is intended to help educate you on a different approach when working with challenging projects. We are going to talk about it in the context of software projects, but you can apply this methodology to any type of project that you face, personal or business. So, this is normally a webinar where we would send out homework, but you're watching this online and you were not sent homework. We are going to work on some of the exercises, kind of impromptu, but I need you to grab a couple pieces of paper. You can have a notebook if you have some blank pieces of paper handy, or just grab a couple sheets of scrap paper or computer paper. We have a full agenda. We're quickly going to introduce Lodestar, talk about who we are, what we do, and how we can help. I want to give you some format tips on how the webinar is going to run, just so you understand, and then we're going to get right into the meat of it. The history of why projects fail. What is the agile way of thinking? What is the process? What are the roles in a typical project? What are some of the ground rules? And then we're going to go through some activities that will really help you understand how you can leverage Agile. At the end of this webinar, you will have gone through a mini project planning exercise that's similar to how Agile would break it out. At the end of the webinar, or at any point, you can email us and we will send you a packet of resources that will help you further your knowledge of this approach and of what we can help with. My expectations of you. We live in a very attention-grabbing environment, and I want to make sure that all the distractions that you have are gone. So that means close your email, turn your phones on silent, no messaging, no AIM, no instant messaging with Facebook, no LinkedIn. You are mine for the next 45 minutes. The beauty of this is it's online. You can come back to it at any point and it'll always be here. If you need to pause it and come back to it, that's fine. But when you come back, just make sure that all the distractions are gone. So what you can expect from me, I will be fully engaged and I will not be distracted. If you have a question, this is an email for Kathy Myers, and her email address is kmyers@lodestarsolutions.com. You can email her any questions, and this is also the email that you will need to send a request for the free resource packet. At any point, we'll provide you resources that will help you, and Kathy will send you that information. I'm Bethany Nonami, and I like to start things a little humorous, so I start with very personal information. I'm an Aries, I enjoy movies and yummy food, and I try to make everything funny or fun. I've been in technology for over 20 years. I started with Lodestar in 2006, and I work in an operational role. So ultimately, we serve as project managers, mentors, and coaches to our clients. We want to make sure that you are self-reliant, and we can help you if you need us, but you should be able to have the confidence and the knowledge to maintain whatever project we worked with you on. I will do my very best to make this a memorable webinar and make sure that it's the best webinar you've ever attended, ever. Lodestar Solutions, we are educators and coaches of business analytics. We are an IBM Cognos premier reselling partner, so that means we sell licenses, we sell support renewal, and we also help on the services side if you need help with one of your Cognos products. We have experienced, seasoned consultants. Most of our consultants have years of business experience, and we just train them on the Cognos product. We have customized on-site training. We also can provide technical assistance if you get stuck with something weird that's tech and funky. Most of our consultants are cross-trained, so they know TM1 and how TM1 works in BI. They know BI and how to feed data from TM1. We are very big on making sure that you have your own network of people that you can work with. So we host user groups that are virtual, online. We also have educational webinars every month, and we also offer workshops. A lot of times we talk about things that are related in a context of Cognos, but it's software agnostic. You can apply it to anything. We are also certified women-owned business, so if you have supplier diversity programs and things like that, then maybe you can get credit towards those diversity programs. So let's get started. Why do software development projects fail? Typically, projects are started for a couple of reasons. Some executive stakeholder says, I need this now. I need it now, I need it now, I need it now. You don't have a choice, you have to deliver it, but you may not have detailed requirements of why you need to deliver that product. Is it something that I'm clear on if we can support that product? Is it something that's complicated? Is it something that's simple? Is it something that I even have the right resources to get done? So oftentimes we don't have agreed requirements, and that's the beginning of the project. That's where you start. You start with requirements before you begin to build, before you begin to test. And oftentimes there's a huge gap. So there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of anarchy. There's no agreement. There's no succinctness. Everything's going on everywhere. Typically people follow a waterfall approach. This is a project management approach that has been around for ages, and it's very successful with certain projects. Sometimes when you develop projects, you don't absolutely know every single thing you're going to encounter. So waterfall doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility in some cases, and you follow a plan. Agile is a little bit different. Agile assumes that there are things that we don't know. It assumes that there are things that are going to change as we get down the road on our project. And we're ready for that. We expect that. If it doesn't happen, then great. We designed the best project ever. But we expect it to happen, and we accommodate that. So if you look at the success rate, I still have failed projects with Agile. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't fix everything, but it's much lower. And what's much higher is my projects that are successful. So I still have complexity, I still have challenges, but my success rate is a lot better, which I like. Agile really forces us to change the way we think and the way we approach projects. We are moving to individuals and interactions, opposed to processes and tools. We are looking at working software opposed to a comprehensive project plan or document that's going to master everything that we're going to build. We're looking at customer collaboration, frequent communication, constant discussions, opposed to contract negotiation. We're also looking at responding to change, opposed to following a plan. We still have plans. I'm not saying we're just rogue designing and developing and building and testing and we don't have a plan. We still have a plan, but it's okay to change it. And it's expected that things will pop up. At the top, you see what's typically waterfall. We do all our requirements up front, then we do our design, then we do our build, then we do our test. Now, what sometimes happens is design might take a little longer, requirements might take longer, but build 9 times out of 10 will definitely take longer. So testing gets pushed, documentation gets pushed. They say, well, we wanted to test it more, but we really don't have time. What Agile allows you to do, it allows you to do overlapping development. So what I do is I say, what are our requirements? I have to do this, this, and this. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean to the user? What does that mean to the business? What does that mean to IT? And what does it take to get that done? So I will break my project into small chunks called sprints. And during each sprint, and a sprint is literally just a 2-week to 4-week period of time, I choose what I think I can get done in that period of time. And in that time, I define my requirements, I design it, I build it, and I test it. So at the end of that period of time, I will have something done. Even if it's just a piece, it doesn't have to be everything. Everything's not going to be done in 2 weeks, but at least a piece will be done. If I have this massive project plan, I'm going to say, okay, this person's going to be on vacation. This person has another project that's going live, so I'm going to lose some time, and I'm available full time. So I think in these 2 weeks, I've got 8 working days. I think we can get this done in 8 working days. In that period of time, I will define it, I will design it, I will build it, and I will test it. Some sprints, I may get 1 or 2 things done, and that's fine. As long as I set the expectation that something might pop up, that we'll be focused and committed and we'll do the best we can. So let's look at the process. We want to start with the definition. Every project starts with someone's vision of something. Somebody came up with this grand idea of something that will probably make our business better, give us more access to data, give us visibility that we never had before. So it starts with the vision. We have to define success around that vision. We build in what's called user stories. These are scenarios for the people that would benefit from this vision. And we'll go into more about what user stories are in a minute. We have self-forming teams. I define what the project is. I define what that would be, what type of skills I need, and I look amongst my team and say, this is the project. I have team members that can volunteer and say, I'm really good at SQL queries. I cannot do these other 9 things, but I can help you on the SQL query. So awesome. We have self-forming teams. Then we go through a planning process, just like we would do in any other project. We're going to define what we're going to deliver, and we're going to define what the requirements of the projects are. Those are based on our vision, based on our scenarios. Then we actually begin to build. We break the build into small chunks that are called sprints. The team decides what we're going to build based on time, based on complexity, based on other dependencies. Maybe I won't have a server ready. Maybe we're in an IT freeze and we can't do anything. And then at the end, we review. At the end of each sprint, we talk about this worked well, this did not work at all. So in the next sprint, we do something better. We don't do what didn't work. We do what we think will work better. What I want you to do is I want you to grab one of your blank sheets of paper, and I want you to draw something that looks like this. So I need 3 columns. So just draw 2 lines down the middle of the page, or down 1/3, and then draw a line at the top. I want you to do this 2 times. So you should have 2 pieces of paper that look exactly like this, or similar to this. 2 blank sheets of paper that look just like this. Okay, now what I want you to do, in the left column, I want you to write A to Z. In the middle column, I want you to write months. On the far right column, I want you to write sevens. So on the paper that you drew, A to Z, months, sevens. Now, what I want you to do, I'm going to explain it first, and then I want you to go ahead and do the exercise. But before you start, I want you to listen to the directions and then pause the video. Step 1, I want you to write down the letters A to Z until you get to the 10th letter. Step 2, I want you to write in the months column, January, February, March, until you get to the 10th month. In column 3, I want you to write increments of 7 until you get to the 10th increment, 7, 14, 21. So just to recap, you are going to first write A, B, C. Finish that till you get to the 10th letter. Then months, January, February, March. Do that till you get to the 10th month. Then repeat the same process with sevens, 7, 14, 21. And nobody's going to see this, so don't get all hung up with your sevens not making sense. And 7 plus 7 plus 7. So do the best you can. It is not a competition. You're not being timed, you're not being judged or graded. Again, A to Z, months, sevens. Please pause the video and write that down. Okay, great. Now, I want you to grab the second sheet of paper that you wrote with the blank columns and write the same thing. I want you to write A through Z on the left column, months in the middle column, and sevens in the right column. Exactly like you did on the first sheet. Before we start, push that other sheet that you just did somewhere else. Turn it on its side, turn it on the back so you can't see what you did. Okay, so now I want you to write horizontally. I want you to write A, January 7. B, February 14. You are still doing this 10 times, but instead of doing all the letters, I want you to do letter, month, 7. Letter, month, 7. Down 10 times. Go ahead and start. Please pause the video. Great. In activity 1, you focused on one project at a time. If I treat A to Z as a project, you were able to focus on A to Z. Then you could shift your focus to months. Then you could shift your focus to sevens. Now, activity 2, I asked you to multitask and work on 3 projects at the same time. So I don't know how you did, but when I did this exercise, activity 2 kind of threw me off. I still got the same results, and I did it slower than I did activity 1, but shifting from letter to month to 7 and then starting it all over again, I felt like I was hopping all over the place, and I did not feel as productive as I did the first time I went through the exercise. Why I have you go through that is to tell you multitasking hurts your team. It doesn't help them. Part of the Agile methodology is if you do not have the right people that have the time to dedicate, don't do the project. And when I say that, I understand that your world can't stop, and you have to continue to do your job while you do this project. But if you can reduce the number of projects that you have to work on, or reduce the number of things that you have to do in a day, where you can spend time just dedicated to focusing on one thing, your productivity soars. So this is a diagram from the book Slack. And Slack is written by Tom DeMarco, and he's very familiar with Agile methodologies. And they did research on people that had multiple projects. And they said it takes you about 20 minutes for your brain to really shift, to go from one project to another. If you have one project, and this is actually just one project, I only count on 5 hours of productive work. So in an 8-hour day, 5 hours is what is focused, productive time. In their research, they saw that even if a person was on one project, there's time that they need for social interaction. Social interaction could be calling their kids and making sure they got home from school. It could be checking personal email. It could be making sure I pay that bill before I forget. It's not something that they mean to do on company time. It's not a deliberate avoidance of doing their work. It's just social time, going to get coffee. And even if they work from home, that it's still time is blocked out. So even in a virtual environment, one project gives me 5 to 6 hours of productive work in a day. Now what's interesting is when I add more projects, I go down. If a person has 2 projects a day, they might get 4 hours of work out of 2 projects. Not 8, 4 hours. They have 3 projects, it drops down to 3. They have 4 projects, it drops down to 2.5. They have 5 projects, you get 2 hours of productive work. So just sit for a second and think about how many projects you're working on right now. And how many do you shift in a day? Even if you have 5 projects that you're working on, it would be better for you to block out one day for project 1, another day for project 2, another day for project 3, instead of dedicating 20% here, 20% there. So when we go to clients and they say, well, I've got 20% of Lisa, 20% of Becky, and 20% of Heather. Well, that's an hour. I can count on an hour a day from that 20%. That's all I'm getting. I appreciate that I'm trying to get more help, but I would rather have one person that's dedicated than 5 half people. Does that make sense? How do we decide what we work on? You guys have probably always seen a quadrant, and people love to use this for different things, but we tried to explain it in a sense that would make sense to anyone. For us, we want to have projects that are high impact to the organization. Everyone can think of something that they would like to do better, they would like to have, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good impact to the organization, or it's going to impact other people besides them. So they really have to look at what is the impact of the organization for this project. The other thing I have to look at is what is the risk. Risk to me is cost. I don't have the budget, I don't have the cost, I don't have the money to do this, I don't have the people, I don't have the time and the resources to do this, I don't have the skills, I don't know this software, I don't know this new application that they're going to put in, or we have to custom code something and we don't have anybody that can do that. All of those things are risk. And if it's high risk and not a big impact to the organization, then you avoid it. You don't do it. So you could simply just draw a line in a piece of paper and make 4 quadrants, and you could say impact to the organization high, risk high here, low here. What I'm looking for, and map your projects out. Project 1, not a big impact to the organization, don't have the skills, high risk. Project 2, huge impact to the organization, and I actually have the right people, and if I do this right, I can get the money for it. So that's a project you focus on. So it's very easy to create a quadrant like this that makes sense. Sometimes people do it based on resources. Sometimes people do it based on cost. Sometimes people do it based on return on investment. Whatever these factors are for you. Impact to the organization and risk are just easy ones. Many things can fall into risk. Many things can fall into impact. So we just use that as kind of a template for us, but you can make one that's specific for you. Okay, so grab another blank piece of paper, and what I want you to do is I want you to think of 3 projects right now that you would like to do, or you are actively doing, and maybe it's not going as well as you hoped, or even a project that you had done in the past. But think of 3 projects that you would like to do or improve or create, and write them on a sheet of paper. You can write the blocks. I just like blocks, but you don't have to write the blocks. So go ahead and write down 3 projects. Now, once you've done the 3 projects, I want you to choose one based on the quadrant that we just talked about. Out of those 3 projects, which has the biggest impact to the organization? Which is the highest impact to your company? And the lowest risk. Lowest cost, lowest resources, lowest availability, whatever that is. Of those 3 projects, which one is the highest impact and the lowest risk? So let me explain this in my example. So what I want you to do, now that you've chosen that project, is I want you to think about how much it will take overall. Don't think about the steps to get it done. Well, I need this much of this person's time, that much of that person's time. Think quickly about how much time it would take and write down what that is. 20 minutes, 20 hours, 20 days, 20 months. You should have something that looks like this. Don't worry about the P1. You have a project. Write the project name and write the time that you came up with. And just put a box around it. Put it on one side of your paper or in the middle of your paper or whatever. So your project name, how many minutes, and just put a box around it. Now, I'm going to figure out my requirements. So my project that I said would take me 16 minutes is cover art and logo. So in order to do that, I've got to do some things. At first, I have to draw a logo. I don't have a logo, but I'm pretty creative and I'm pretty fast, so that shouldn't be a big deal. Then I need to design a cover and I need to figure out where the logo goes on the cover. Then I need to prepare the cover, and not only do I need a logo, I need my company name. And I could make this much more complex, but these are the first 3 major things that I need to do. So what I want you to do is grab another blank piece of paper, and I want you to think about 5 or 6, and if you only have 3 requirements, that's fine, 3 requirements of that project. For my example, I need a cover art and I need logo. So I've got to draw a logo. I can't get that project done without a logo. I've got to figure out what the cover is going to look like. That could be 2 requirements, or I could say decide where I want my company name, decide where to put my phone number, decide where to put my logo. Those are all decisions that I need to think about, but I could just say decide the layout of the cover. It includes all those things, but I can have as much detail as I want or as little detail. Pause the video and write down a few requirements. Now, I want you to think about how much time each requirement would take. So when I thought about mine, I said, okay, well, I think it's going to take me about 8 minutes to design my cover, and I've got to figure out where to put the logo. I think it'll take 4 minutes to do the logo, and about 6 minutes to do the cover and my logo and my company name. I'm good with that. So now you think about how long you think your requirements would take. So pause the video and write down how many minutes, hours, days, months, weeks you think it would take for your requirements to be done. So let's compare. On the left-hand side, I said 16 minutes. On the right-hand side, I said, oh, well, it's more like 18 minutes. This should not equal. On the left-hand side is what we typically do in project management. We say, cover art logo, 16 minutes, check. And then we live by that 16 minutes. Well, what if I start to draw the logo and my boss says, I don't like it, go do another logo? Well, I only have 16 minutes and I just wasted 4 of them drawing a logo that you don't like. So now I have to do another 4 minutes to draw another logo that you might not like either. So when I think about the requirements, this is still an estimate. This is still getting me closer, but it's still an estimate. It's still not set in stone because any of those 3 items that I have to work on could change at the drop of a dime with no warning. Just change. Oh, you know what? We don't want a logo. We don't even want a cover art. We want to do a brochure. Well, that's totally different than what you said you wanted. And we've all had those experiences where the project becomes something that it never started as. What did yours come out with? If your project time estimate matched your requirements estimate, then you have a keen sense of time and sense of estimating. So maybe you should do that professionally. Everyone else might not match, and that's fine. What I'm trying to understand is what is the most likely estimate that I'm going to need for my project. Let's talk about some of the things that are used in an Agile project. We've got user stories. User stories is a huge part of how a project works. It is a list of desired functionality that's not yet built, but I am expecting emergent requirements. This is not a commitment. It's not a project plan, and it doesn't include task assignments. We will have a project plan, we will figure out tasks, and we will assign them to people. But user stories are solely for me to understand what I am building. And this is a template that many people use. It says, as a whatever type of user I am, I want whatever my goal is so that whatever my reason for wanting this information would be. I want to just give you a warning that as a project team, the following words are scary to us. So we kindly ask that you don't use them when you're in our presence. I would like an ad hoc. I would like a module. I would like a system. I would like a framework, or how about a back office? All of those things could mean anything. I may be able to build a module. I may not be able to build a back office. Are they the same? I have no idea. None of these words should be in your user stories. I can't define them. I don't know what they are. I can work to get to a point to define them, but I don't know what they are. Let's look at a user story. As a VP of marketing, I want to review performance of historical advertising campaigns so that I can identify profitable campaigns that are worth repeating. Okay, I think I can build something like that, but I need more detail. So let's modify it. As a VP of marketing, I want to select a holiday season to be used to review performance of historical advertising campaigns so that I can identify profitable campaigns worth repeating. Getting better, getting warmer. Here is what it needs to be broken down to. At the top, this is an epic user story. It's too big for me to design, so I need to break that down. As a VP of marketing, I want to select a holiday season to be used. So really what we're trying to do is get down to this level. I want to make sure it works with major retail holidays. I want to support holidays that span 2 calendar years. Holiday seasons can be set from one holiday to another. Holiday seasons can also be set to the number of days. All of these things I can program or find the data or get it to the user. This, I can't. It seems great. This is my vision. These are my requirements. These are my user stories. This is what I build to ultimately make this vision happen. In Agile, it's called Epic and user stories. Epic is too high level for me to be able to measure. User stories I can measure, test, and deploy. I need to get to a user story level on any project that I'm working on. Ultimately, I get to something that looks like this. These are my requirements at the top. Manage the site, open and manage an account, create and distribute a test, display results. These are my individual user stories. These are my requirements that I can build to, that I can test, and that I can deploy. They're grouped by function or feature. This is an example. This is my wall. This is in the kids' playroom. I should have photoshopped out like the pencil on the wall and all this stuff, but I didn't. This is our services process for Lodestar. So I identified all of these things that are at the top are what we do before we start a project. So it's an intro, it's setting expectations, it's scoping. Scoping is a topic. All of these are the requirements that have to be fulfilled for me to complete a scoping exercise. These are activities that happen during a project. So it might pre-project planning. All of these are the steps that we do before we start a project. If we don't plan it well, this is before we even kick off. If we don't plan it well, it won't necessarily work the best way. So we try to do a lot of planning up front, and then these are the project phases. This is after the project closes. So this is kind of how I went and took the Agile methodology and said, okay, what are the big chunks? Let me figure that out first, and then let me think of what makes that up. All of these things that are the colors, the blue and the pink and the yellow, I can measure, I can test, I can deploy. All of these things that are yellow are making up these requirements. It's like the granddaddy of all these children, all these little tiny things that are going on at one time. How do I determine what I build? And how do I prioritize? Once you get to the point that you have all these requirements, it may emerge and it may grow to something that you did not think it was going to be. So you have to define and decide as a team what you're going to do. You're going to have some that you must have, some that you should have, if at all possible. I could have it, but it doesn't really matter, and I want it, but that's only if everything else on my list is done. This is called the Moscow method. It's fairly common, but it's an easy way for me to remember. Do you have to have this? Must, must, must? Or, well, I could, I can live with or without it. So it helps you prioritize it. Some of those things may need to be discussions with the business or the project owner or whoever is the visionary on this project. It should not be prioritized by the people that are building. It should be prioritized by the owner or the stakeholder or the executive sponsor of this project. So now that I have that, what do? So we break it into sprints. And we are going to say, I will build this user story and this user story in this sprint. Sprints can be 2 weeks long, they can be 4 weeks long. It just completely depends on your organization and the requirements of the project. Industry standard is about 2 weeks. That's fairly common. Probably 80 to 90% of the projects are done in 2-week sprints. You can see that I'm going to have some planning, I'm going to have some coding, some testing. Some things are left to do, some things are in progress, some things are being verified or tested, and some things are done. So this is kind of like a storyboard that is a project task list. So it's a little bit different than what you're used to seeing in Excel or project as a project plan, but very similar. I still have tasks, I still have activities, and they still have a status of what's going on with them. We won't get into details about what the numbers mean or how to assign tasks to different people. So this is an example. If you are planning a dinner, your husband, boyfriend, friend, BFF, whatever, says, well, I'm going to go watch the football game. Okay, how long is that? Well, technically, a football game is 4 15-minute quarters. Okay, so an hour? Well, not really. You get home 2.5, 3 hours later because that's how long a football game takes. So we know that a football game technically is an hour long, but the TV networks and the cable channels and ESPN have trained us to expect something that would take an hour to take 2.5 to 3 hours. You've got commercials and you've got timeout and you've got flags and you've got penalties, and it doesn't take an hour. Most kids' games don't even take an hour. What we're doing is we're going from what the project plan says, football game equals 60 minutes, to 2.5, 3 hours. So here's an example that everyone can relate to. I have to go to the airport. I need to fly out. I'm going to Spain. There is one flight a day. If I miss it, I'm stuck. So in order to do that, I break it down into requirements. I have to leave the house, I have to drive to the airport, I have to park, have to check in, have to go through security. So my best case, 5 minutes to get to the airport, or it takes me 5 minutes to get out of the house. It takes me way longer than that if my husband's going because he takes forever to leave the house. But for me, it takes me 5 minutes. Drive to the airport, 20 minutes on a good day. Park, 10 minutes, try to park close, try to park in covered parking. Check in, 5 minutes max. Security, maybe 15 minutes. And walk into the gate, if we're late, it'll be the last gate. So I gotta plan for some time. That's my best case. What we're doing with Agile is we're saying, okay, thank you for your best case, but I'm adding a buffer. Because I know you live in Atlanta, and at any given time, it can take you 3 times as long to get anywhere, even going to the grocery store. So you are telling me 20 minutes, I'm gonna add 40 minutes to that. You're telling me it's gonna take you 10 minutes to park, well, I think parking lot's gonna be packed, so I'm gonna add some time to that. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a buffer to every task. Doesn't mean I'll need it, doesn't mean I'll use it, but I want to add that buffer. So what I come up with is a worst case and a best case. So when we design things in Agile, we say, I will estimate it'll take 4 to 6 weeks. 4 weeks is the best case, 6 weeks is the worst case. There's all these moving parts in projects. I've got to work with this person, and they've got to get something from this person, and I've got to do something on this server, and I've got to wait for this answer. And it's just, so many things are not in our control. So we estimate a best case and a worst case. So if I look at that in days, and I say, okay, 20 to 30 days. It'll either take us 2 weeks or 2 sprints, which are 2 weeks apiece, or it's going to take us 4. I don't know. We've got to figure that out, or however many sprints or however many days we have those sprints. So we've got to figure it out. So let's break it down. We define, based on our vision, what's in our product backlog. This is kind of like a project plan at a high level. This is, I am going to have these requirements. This user story, this thing, So just like I explained for the airport, I'm going to have to drive to the airport. I'm going to have to park. I'm going to have to go through security. Those are my project components. I break that down into what's called a sprint backlog. This is like a task list. It changes every 2 weeks. Every sprint, I have a new list. This is a small chunk of what we're developing here. This might only be one little block, and we're breaking it down into these different tasks. We meet on a daily basis. We meet to say, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to work on today? And what's going to stop you from getting that done? Every single day. It should not exceed 15 minutes. Anybody is welcome, but only the project team can speak. So if you want to invite the key stakeholders, you want to invite executives, they can listen, but it is not a time for questions. It is not a time to discuss why something's slipping, other than what's going to stop you from getting your work done today. My job as a project manager or a scrum master is to get that roadblock out of your way. As a project manager, my job is to support the team. It is not to tell you what to do. It is not to tell you how long it's going to take you to do it. It's to say, what can I do to help you get this done? You know how to do it. I don't. What can I do to help you? If the answer is nothing, get out of my way, I'm cool with that. If that will help you, that's what I will do. At the end of each sprint, you will have a potentially shippable product. That could be a piece of 5 different things. I finished piece 1, and that's fine. In the next sprint, we're going to do 2 and 3. In the last sprint, we're going to do 4 and 5. But it is designed, the requirements are done, it is built, and it is tested within that 2-week period of time, or whatever my sprint period of time might be. Here's an example of 1 week. This is tight. This is why 1 week is tough to get done. I do a plan day. I do some planning in the morning, couple hours. We do day 1, day 2, day 3 of construction, and then we do a review and a retro. And review and retro are kind of the same thing, or very similar. We're just trying to figure out what we did well, what we didn't do well, what was done, what was not done, what's got to move over to the next sprint, and we meet on a daily basis. Here's more common, more realistic, or not more realistic, but more common. This is actually a 3-week sprint. We do 2 weeks most cases, but sometimes people do 3 and sometimes people do 4. Once you choose that, you want to stick to that. You don't want to say, well, this sprint's going to be 1 week, this sprint's going to be 3 weeks. You want to kind of have a steady flow. So this is saying day 1 and day 2, we plan. We build, test, do all these different things. Test, tweak, change, code, program. And then we lock it down. We do a demo, and we review it, and we move on to the next sprint. This looks different for different people. So some of the project components, you have a product owner. That is like the person that's the visionary, the person that answers the question about what do we do if this process changes? What do we do if there's no answer? I need you to go get me an answer. Scrum Master is your project manager. They support the team. They help the team. They don't tell the team what to do. They don't tell the team how to do it and how fast. And then you have your team. And ultimately, that can be a combination of people. It could be marketing. It could be HR. It can be IT. It can be business, finance. Whoever that team that has the expertise to get it done, that's your team. They have this thing called ceremonies, which is really a fancy name for meetings. You have a planning meeting, a review meeting, a retrospective, and a daily scrum meeting. That's your daily status meeting. And I know you're thinking daily, oh, really? I've got enough stuff to do in my day. Yeah, you do. But this forces you to be accountable and stay on task every day. Because you know you got to talk to us tomorrow and tell us what you got done. So it stinks, but once you get used to it, it almost becomes a way of doing business. Artifacts or documents. These are things that I would commonly use during the course of a project. So a product backlog is kind of like my vision broken down into features or requirements. My sprint backlog are tasks that I'm going to do in a sprint. That changes every 2 weeks. So that sprint backlog is a living, working, breathing document. So is the product backlog. And burn down just tracks how we're doing. How are we trending? Are we making more progress? Are we going slower? Or are we going faster? How are we doing? That's what a burn down chart is. So implementation considerations. We're almost done. We're almost at the end. This is not a silver bullet. Is it the answer to everything in life's questions? No. Does it help you be more successful? In our opinion, it does. I mean, we've done many implementations, all different sizes, all different shapes, all different industries, and this is a pretty constant methodology. It allows us to be more successful. It allows our clients to be more successful. If you're interested, we can help you learn more before you pitch something to your company. If you have some project that you can think of that this would be a good fit for, then you can run a test pilot. Can you get something small approved? It's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of visibility, but it would be an impact to the organization, and it's not high risk. Can you do that? Absolutely. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be resistance to change. People do not like change. This is a political shift. This is a cultural shift to many organizations. This is not how they do it now. And you're trying to change status quo. So there may be some uphill battles. There may be some heated conversations, but the whole reason we're doing it to get you to a place that you can implement projects with less risk, with higher success, with greater impact. It's the whole goal. So we're going to send you a post-webinar pack of goodies. Don't worry about the survey. And you can email K Myers at Lodestar, LODESTAR Solutions for a copy of the free resources. We have in there resources of where you should start. Certain books are good for executives, other ones are good for project managers. If you're brand new to Agile in general, then I have a sequential order that you can follow, the kind of high-level intro, and then you can get very deep in the weeds. There are also different apps that you can get for iPhone, iPad, Android, and Lodestar also offers public workshops. So we have one-day Agile public workshops in different cities around the US, and it's a very small fee for what you would learn in one day. It's like a crash course to Agile. We also do this workshop on site with clients. So you got more than one person that needs to see it, and you bring them all in for a day or two, and we take them through a crash course in your environment, and we plan one of your projects out from the beginning to the end so you know how to do it. Here's our contact information. If you'd like sales information, you can contact Heather Cole at Lodestar Solutions. Our main number is 813-254-2040. And you can also contact Kathy Myers for services or support renewals. We have tons of events. We have tons of blogs. We have virtual online user groups, different workshops that you can attend. Our goal is to make sure that you are educated and armed with as much resources as possible to be successful. So we hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to getting your feedback, hearing your comments, and working with you in the future. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.